Now, hey guys. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us on the Crossover Sports Podcast, episode 19. Rocking out with the boy Matt. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us on the. Sorry for the echo. Thank you guys for spending your holiday weekend or the start of your holiday weekend with us. Thank you all so much. So much. I'm rocking out with Matt right now. More people will join. So go ahead, Matt, and introduce yourself.
Hello. It's Matt. Getting ready to talk sports and Trump and President Trumpkin. Also, it's spring training. It's spring training. Baseball's here. Oh my God! So I cannot wait for this MLB season. I can't wait to swing the bat. I just can't wait for NBA season. This main push. Let's go get it.
Yes. So as we always start this show off, we started off with our crossover hot takes. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to start with a sports topic. So Matt, what's more important? What do you think is more important? 100 straight wins or a title?
Title. I mean, it's that's simple. That shouldn't mean a no-brainer. Because if you're so interested as to
hold on before you go, I forgot. I gotta tell people what this topic's about. The UConn women's basketball team won 100 straight games on Monday. They beat the University of Southern California of South Carolina on Monday by a score of 66-55. So that's what we're talking about. They won 100 straight games, beating Woodens Bruins by 12 games. So go ahead, Matt, and tell me why you think that's impressive and whether you think it's important, whether you think 100 straight wins is more important than the title that they probably will win. So go ahead and let me know.
Well, I'd rather take title over 100 wins. 100 wins, in my opinion. Look, I'm not gonna dismiss anyone or any team that won 100 games, particularly in college basketball, which is not easy. 100 straight wins, which is so not easy to do. It's not easy to do. You get to have the continuity. You get to have the the know-how to maintain such a feat as that. So, with that being said, oh, there goes my phone. So, with that being said, you gotta look at it this way. It's cool. It's nice. It's nice to have 100 wins, but it's all about the championship. I mean, the Patriots proved that. You can go 19-0 all you want, but if you don't get that key win, it don't matter. I mean, we seen with the again, I'll use Golden State last year. They went after the best record in NBA history, winning 73 wins, going 73 wins. 73-9, best record in sports. If you don't win the games that matter, then your record kind of sort of gets forgotten. You know what I'm saying? So to me, the championships are more important than the wins itself. Because in order to get the 100 wins, you have to bring the champion to come with it. It's synonymous. I mean, people will forget the fact that Golden State did win 73 games, and LeBron James won the NBA title. People forgot about that, or that becomes a footnote in history, so to speak. I mean, you can be the best, but they had the best record, the best regular season record, best streak, or whatever. But if you do not win that title, if you do not go out and win that title, then your record means nothing. It really does. It's just say, hey, you just went through the bulk of what you need to go through. And now here it is, the postseason, the playoffs. Now you have to fend off the best of the best, and since you have a target on your back, your job is to win the whole thing, no matter what. So, with that being said, championships matter. They matter more than anything, and that's my take on it. Because if you do not win that championship of your respective sport, all those wins mean nothing.
Well, usually I would say title matters over wins, but since we're talking about this in perspective to the UConn women's basketball team, I wrote an article on this on WatsonSportsTakes.com. Check it out. Good read on the UConn women's basketball team and what matters more. Is it title or 100 wins? Now, in the article, I pointed this out in the article as well. UConn has won so far in the last 3 years back-to-back-to-back titles, meaning they've won the last 3 titles in the last 3 years, right? So that puts them at 22. UConn has 22 titles, right? And as a women's basketball program, Gino Auriemma has 11. So you have 11 titles, 3 in the last 3 years, right? And you'll probably get a 4th this year, but we won't count that as a foregone conclusion like most people do, right? And before I give the answer to the question, I just want to say the UConn women. We have never seen. I think we said this a few weeks ago. We have never seen this much sustained dominance by any team ever since Wooden's Bruins. And you know who John Wooden had on that team? He had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He won 88 straight games with those Bruins. Connecticut beat his win record by 12. They've won 100 straight games. Haven't lost in 3 years. 3 years. That was actually the last time they lost the title. 3 years ago. They haven't lost the title or a game, for that matter, in 3 years. That's how amazing UConn is. And some people say, oh, it's women's basketball. Women's basketball sucks, right? And those people who say that, if you say women's basketball sucks, the women play basketball in its most purest and fundamental form. I've seen, and this is coming from a former basketball player.
But the gameplay's different, though. Gameplay's different.
It is, but it's still basketball.
I mean, it is true. Don't get me wrong. It's in its purest form, but don't get me wrong. The gameplay is different when it comes to women's basketball versus men's basketball. The gameplay is different. The style is different. I mean,
and I'm getting ready to get to that. See, we as men, we don't play unless you play in San Antonio. You don't play team-oriented ball. San Antonio. I hear crickets, so that's good. San Antonio plays the most fundamental game of basketball in professional basketball, the NBA, because there's the team-oriented thing, right?
True.
Everybody else in the NBA, in college, in men's college basketball, and high school, they play individual ISO ball. I hate ISO ball. This is coming from
high school.
Huh?
In high school?
Even in high school, they play ISO ball.
Look. I mean, NBA. This is a time and place for ISO ball. I'll admit it. There's a time and a place. I mean, I agree with the fact. The way the NBA is right now is like pass. I get it. But sometimes, sometimes you need to isolate certain defenders to exploit a matchup or
Well, right.
run out of clock.
Well, let me say this: there's nothing wrong with iso ball if you have one of those great players, and iso ball has its spots, but not in the whole game. Players like Carmelo Anthony do iso ball all the time, and I love Carmelo, but that's his game, iso ball.
Bron's game New York, anyways.
Even though he's a great basketball player, that's LeBron's game too. ISO basketball. Like most people don't realize. This is what I mean by the watered down form of basketball that they play in all forms, especially in college, and then some NBA teams is killing the game. Like I love women's college basketball and the way the women play basketball because it's fundamental basketball. It's pass. They play iso ball too, but it's in situations where you expect it. The last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, okay, it's acceptable to play iso ball. Get the ball to your star, right? But it's fundamental basketball. Everybody touches the ball. Everybody gets a score. There's no ego. It's pure basketball the way it should be played. It's team sports. This is what I hate about team sports now. It's not as much of a problem in like football and baseball because you don't really have the ball as much as you do in basketball. So it's a bigger problem in basketball than it is in every other sport. But in basketball, now and you can say this that basketball is the only real pure team sport. What I mean by that is you win as a team, you lose as a team. It's not like football where one person's mistake can cost you the game. In basketball, if you suck, you suck. If your team sucks, your team sucks, right? In football, you can come up with a myriad of reasons why your team sucks. Oh, the defense is bad. Oh, I have a turnover. I have an Eli Manning at quarterback. He turns the ball over. In basketball, you win. You have 5 players on the team. You run up and down the court. If one of y'all suck, you all suck. That's how it works in basketball. And I have to say, because I'm running on a tangent here, but women's basketball, they play the most purest form of basketball. That's what I'll say there. And to win 100 games and still win 3 championships while winning 100 straight games is amazing. And so usually I would say the titles matter. But since UConn's probably going to win their 4th straight title anyway this year, I'm just gonna say this, right? Usually, if it wasn't for UConn, like if this was Golden State or Cleveland or the Patriots, then I'd say the title matters. But since UConn has won 3 straight titles these last 3 years, it matters more than the title this year.
Here's the thing: if you won 100 games straight, going into March Madness, you have to win the same title. You have to win that title again, unless the streak is broken midway through the season. I mean, if it's broken, okay, fine, all bets are off. But the fact of the matter is, you play 100 straight games without a loss, and let's say you go into March Madness and you still winning games. I mean, that the ante is up. The bar has been raised. You must. And it's mandatory that you win the NCAA title. You have to.
But let's be real, because we have to be. We are realistic. We advertise ourselves as realistic sports fans. So we know that the only real team that'll probably knock UConn off are named Baylor and Notre Dame. And since they won't be playing them until the Final Four, we won't have to worry about them losing. Like women's college basketball is much like men's college basketball. The top 2 teams, top 4 teams, always end up in the Final Four. So it's really.
I want to say that for men's basketball because anything can happen. I do mean anything.
Okay, but let's be real though. That's one team. It's usually soft. I've had this argument before. Like there is no such thing as parity in college basketball. I will say this. Like
I disagree with you on that one. I disagree.
Okay, but look, we can save that for after this one. But the women's college basketball is impressive. Usually, if this was Golden State, Cleveland, the Patriots, I would say then you got to get the title winning 100 straight games. But like I said, since UConn has won 3 straight titles, I'll say, and what will probably happen is they'll win 100 straight games, and most likely they'll win the title this year, which would be an amazing season. And I pointed this out in the article. If they find a way to win 100 plus games, right, and get the title, they are the greatest team in college basketball. There is no debates. You win 100 straight games, or however many games they'll win before they lose or get knocked off. Let's be real, they could not get knocked off until next year. So, however many games you win, and if you win the title, there's no debate. It will be the UConn Huskies, then Wooden's UCLA Bruins. I know that's blasphemy, but title-wise, team-wise, and everything else, it's UConn. Everything comes up UConn. So that's my thing on it. If you want to add yourself in with, if you want to debate that, go ahead, Matt.
Because here's the thing. I'm not gonna discount the fact that I'm not gonna discount the fact that what they're doing is not impressive. It is impressive. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the thing is simply this. All right, let's say between now and say we're the Big East, right?
Right.
American Conference now. If they from there to the American, if they get to the American Conference playoff, I think, and lose between that point, okay, fine. All bets are off. The pressure is off a little bit, knowing the fact that you got that loss, you got it out the way. That's one thing. Number two, but if you go ahead and you win all the way up to the playoff, get to the March Madness, you get to the field of 16, field of 68 now. You have to go through pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more games just to win the title. That's not it. I don't care if you NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, MLS, even men's basketball. It's a feat nonetheless, and it should be celebrated. But you can get there and lose. At the end of the day, championship matter because you should it off.
Yeah. So here's the next question: do you think that, like the Patriots, let's be real, this is UConn here. Do you really think that UConn's going to get knocked off? Do you really think that this year is going to end? 2017 will end. No. I predict 2017 is going to end just like 2016, 2015, and 2014 did. They're going to win the title. Now, UConn hasn't lost in 3 years, and they won 3 titles since.
But it's entertaining to watch, though. It's very entertaining to see teams like Notre Dame and Southern Cal, even the real USC going after them. Look, Mr. South Carolina, by the way. Look, I will watch. I will love to watch those games. I will love to see, who can knock off mighty UConn. Honestly, I would love to see that. If they're still playing, still winning, by all means, I'll watch. But my thing is, who can do one better than UConn? That's all. That's it.
Well, at this point, the answer is nobody. But like I said, we'll see in March. But I fully expect UConn to win the title. And we'll have this discussion again where I'll say right here, and I'll say it again, because I fully expect, even now, I feel like they're better, even if they don't win the title. Let's just say for some reason they don't win the title. Let's say they have an off day and Notre Dame or Baylor knocks them off in the title game or wherever they get knocked off at in March, next month, right? Right. So let's just say they win. Let's say they win everything. But if they lose, like they won 11 titles, one more than UCLA, so they're still better than UCLA, title-wise, Now again, it's women compared to men's basketball, but title-wise, it's still college basketball. So title-wise, UConn's better. Team-wise and coach-wise, there's a debate there. Coach-wise, is definitely a debate between Auriemma and Wooden. But, you know, the fact of the matter is this. Gino Auriemma has been at UConn since 1985. Before he got there, they lost. They were laughing stocks. They were like the Cleveland Browns of college basketball. Since he got there, it's 11 titles, 22 overall. They're just a behemoth. You know that a team this dominant can only happen in sports like basketball and like baseball. You know, sports where no matter what, and I've said this last week, I'll say it again this week. Sports where I could have talent and I know I can win, rather than football where I gotta have talent and some luck to win games. So
look, I think
sports like wait, let me finish. Sports like basketball, sports like hockey, sports like baseball, sports where it's not one and done. Basketball, like, okay, you'll get like the Butlers, the FGCUs of the world that'll have some luck and their talent will rise up, but they really don't get far. Well, except for Butler, who got all the way to the championship game before they lost to Duke. But that hasn't happened in like 14 years. So you have stuff like that where, you know, the sustained talent wins out. And so that's what I love about basketball, baseball, and hockey as well. So, but like I said, I fully expect you know, UConn to win the title. 100 games is very impressive. Like I said before on this podcast, and I'll say it again, we need to appreciate this because there probably will not be another team like UConn in a while. It took us 20, 30 years to get to a team that's as good as UCLA. So it'll take another 20, 30 years to get a team as good as UConn in basketball. Go ahead, man.
I agree with you. I do agree with you much of what you said. But like I said, you can win as many games as you want. The bottom line is simply this: with a streak and a run like that, you have to win it all. It's like I said, one thing to lose between now and selection day. But when you get to the big dance, that's when pressure mounts, and you have to understand the fact of you're here, and you gotta win. Not saying you gotta win this, but you have this run, and you need to sustain the run. You don't want to lose your first game in the tournament. You don't want to do that because that is one thing to have a blemish during the regular season. It's another thing to have a blemish during the postseason.
I don't think they really need to worry about the blemish, but we'll move right along to our favorite walking entertainment. Donald J. Trump. Yesterday. I heard the walking joke because I can't take credit for this. But I heard somebody said on Twitter yesterday, they were all like, the SNL writers, they don't really have to do anything this week. They could just put Alec Baldwin on stage and have him do the press conference from yesterday and let that be the whole SNL show this weekend. That's how awful that. Now, some people will say that was the best press conference they've ever seen a president do. Some people will say that, and I would question their sanity. But the question is this, right? So, what did you think of the press conference yesterday? And Matt, are you still giving him a chance, or has he lost his chance?
Let me me tell you something. I gave that man a chance since day one, and he has not let me down. He is like the Dallas Cowboys. He is an accident waiting to happen. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Hey, look, what's today? Let me look my phone real quick. It's Friday, February 17th. We ain't get past a month yet. Month. And already, you done pissed off a lot of people in the way. Let me try to answer this question. If I can remember it. Because this press conference really was a joke. It was a joke. I mean, you know, really, people who voted for this man, you know, say, well, he's a businessman. He's gonna run it like a business. No, you can't do that. You cannot run a country like it's a Fortune 500 business. It doesn't work that way. You have all sorts of people that you have to account for. You have to account for the veterans. You got to account for the children. You got to account for, single parents who, for whatever reason, is in the predicament they're in right now. You have those who are in college or out of college, got a degree, and dealing with loads and loads of student debt with a high interest rate that's pretty much stratospheric and not up the roof. You got immigration issues, you got crime issues. The list goes on and on. And the one thing is you have to treat each one with care. And he has not. It's just literally not. And then and worse, you have not only a Republican White House, you have a Republican House, you have a Republican Senate, and it seems as though, and it's clear as day, this is particularly on the Republican side, their constituency has made it clear that they're not being heard. They're not being heard. And for these, and I was looking at CBS News tonight, and talking about the Trump supporters who voted for this guy, and they're happy with what he's doing, these fast moving things. I'm like, don't you understand? That's not how government truly works, so to speak, because you need to set yourself in a position to where as though you can be successful, and another thing with the media, you can't fight the media. You can't fight the First Amendment. You just can't go after, you can't go after the media. You just can't, because they're the mouthpiece for the people. I mean, they pretty much represent one side of the people. They have asked questions just like we do. Only difference is the media can ask them better. And you're going to go ahead and discredit the following: New York Times, Washington Post, ABC News, MSNBC, ABC. What else am I missing here? The New York Times. What's next? The Huff Post? Yet you let in Steve Bannon, who runs Breitbart, but which is internet news that you can fact check for days and it's skewed. But I've said this before and I'll say it again. This man, we knew what he said what he was. We knew what he was, and we voted for this guy. Now he's here, and by looking at this press conference, it seems as though he still doesn't get it. Am I going to give him a chance? To me, he already blew it. He can redeem himself by saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm trying not to cuss here. I made a ton of mistakes here. And I'm going to rectify those mistakes, and you're working towards it. then I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here, but it seems as though he's not listening. It's not the government is not stable, and for him to say that his presidency is running, I'm just paraphrasing here, running on all cylinders. Come on, man. I mean, like, not really. And you're mad about the fact that your cabinet is not set up fast enough. Excuse me, it'll take you till what, April, if not June, to get that sucker set up. So you got 4 years. Hang on to your seats because the Senate's doing their job. They're representing their constituencies to ask the questions that they're required to ask. Like, look, if you want to do this job, are you going to do it to not only to the best of your ability, but to also do right by the American people? And that's basically all they're asking. And to lie, to sit up here and lie, is which makes for me this first 100 days very unsettling. It's the instability of everything. So, if I don't get this man a chance, he already blew it. We're not even a month in. We're barely a month in. To me, he's already blew it, and he has to redeem himself on the quickness, or at least over time. And I'm waiting to see that. And God knows what's going to happen. If I hear one more time of the fact that yes, God's on the throne, yes, I get it, I understand it, but we as the people have to come together and do some action. Next.
Well, listen, we got our most distinguished gentleman, Trigger Trey, on the getting ready to come on the track. But before he does, because I want to throw him off his game before he starts talking, somebody had a birthday, and we want to wish him a happy belated birthday. He's a Valentine's Day baby, and before he comes on, here you go, Trey. Shouts out to you.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
It's either that or me singing on the guitar. Take your pick.
Oh my Lord.
So go ahead, Trey. Wish him a happy birthday.
Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. Thank you guys.
You're old.
Yep, I'm 20 now. 20 years old.
Not old enough. Next.
Yeah, I had a good birthday. I had school, so that kind of sucked. But our family had cake and ice cream together and everything, so that was good. But
just not old enough to drink this. I'm telling you.
I might have the pretend I'm 21 just so I can drink.
No, I ain't trying to go. No.
No. Yeah. But I kind of got in on the middle of what Matt was saying about Trump's press conference. But I agree with you, Matt. Like, it's clear that Donald Trump still does not fully understand. He tried to act like he got it, and we saw, during his campaign. I remember when he was talking to the black community. He was like, your schools are bad. You're in poverty. All this stuff. What do you have to lose? And it's like, okay, we thought maybe you were going somewhere with that, and then you just lost us. He's like, what do you have to lose? Vote for me. And clearly, if you look at the numbers, African Americans did not vote for him. But it's clear that he still, and not even just racial issues. He just does not get it. What it means to be president. This press conference is really, at least the way I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched parts of it and read a little bit about it. The way he kind of lashed out to the media and was very, I guess the word is vulnerable. I don't know if that's the right word. Um, is new ground, new territory for, usually you don't see presidents lash out like that. Every once in a while you see a president kind of come out of the closet in terms of how they're feeling about, you know, um, maybe how they're being treated by the media or how they're being treated by, a certain party. But it's never to this extent. Like, and the funny thing is that Trump, this is just how Trump operates. Like, he goes on Twitter and, he says, such and such about, um, the travel ban being blocked or, whatever the case may be. He's very outspoken during his campaign, and he's very outspoken whenever he's in the spotlight, um, on live TV or whenever he's in the spotlight and has to speak in front of people, talking about how he feels about the media. We saw this back on February 1st when he was kind of supposedly doing his tribute to to Black History Month, and one, he didn't realize, or seemingly didn't realize that Frederick Douglass is no longer alive. But then he went on and started ranting about how CNN didn't treat him right, and it's like, okay, Trump, you got to get over it. But clearly he doesn't understand. There. I mean, um, he's always ranting and raving at the press, um, and I don't know, like it's weird. I mean, it's just weird. He doesn't get it. Um, there's a number of things that he's done, um, and I'm not even talking about the travel ban or any, a number of his executive orders. I'm talking about just simple things like the fact that he's still running his own business, which he's supposed to stop doing as president. Um, and another a number of other things that are actually make him impeachable, and he still just doesn't get it because he's a businessman, even though he's been bankrupt what 4 times. Um, like you would think that someone in this position, pretty much the most powerful position in the world, for that matter, eventually you think that they get it. We're 5 weeks in, and you think, okay, eventually, like he's gonna start to understand. All right, I'm president now. Like, I can't talk a certain way. I had to talk. I had to be more presidential. You know, although I have certain personal beliefs as the president of the United States and as the most powerful person really in the world because of the influence that the United States has on the rest of the world, you know, I really have to be self-aware of what's going on in the United States and what's going on overseas. And his idea of being self-aware, is like we saw with the executive order banning, you know, those 7 countries that are Muslim majority countries, but aren't a number of countries that are not on the list actually would have made sense to ban or at least temporarily block immigration from. Um, he thinks he with the situation in Chicago, he's like, um, if the mayor does not stop this, or do something to try to stop the carnage in in Chicago, he's going to send the feds in, and I, I just can't believe that we have a. I didn't believe that he would become president. Now he is. I've got to accept it, right? And now that he's president, like you thought that, like Matt was talking about, giving him a chance. It's like, okay, you got to give him a chance. He's president now. Maybe some of these things that he wants to do aren't actually going to get done. His executive orders, and you're like, okay, maybe these things will get blocked. Okay, the travel plan gets blocked, but now they're going to reinstate this travel ban, and they've kind of reworked it, and it's like, I don't know, it's just a mess. Like, and the funny thing is, he's the type of person that would, after these 4 years are up. I know it's only been 5 weeks, But after these 4 years, he's going to look back at his presidency and think that he actually had a good presidency. And by no means will this be a good. I mean, by the looks of it, from this first 5 weeks, I mean, he's already impeachable by on a number of things, and this presidency does not look like it's in terms of getting better. Does not look like it's on an upward trend, unfortunately.
I gotta stop you there. Hold on for a second, Mike. If you think about this, if I go back to Obama, Obama had an executive order to shut down Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. Which, oh by the way, that was a load of red tape. That was one of his campaign promises. Unfortunately, he didn't get that squared away. But with that being said, the fact that you have 4 years. You have 4 years in office, and
What?
And 4 years, unfortunately. And it's one thing. The first 100 days, you want to establish yourself as president. We get it, but at the same time, it's like this. You have to think about it this way. All those executive orders that he's pumped out. If you notice, I've noticed this too. Fox News, we love Fox News, we do. When Obama pumped out his executive orders, they all, pretty much down him saying slow your roll. But when Trump does it, yeah. I'm like, wait. If there's one thing when Obama does it and there's a method to your madness, we get it, we understand it. There's another thing when Donald Trump does it with trade and everything else. Wait a minute, you don't understand what you're doing. This is not how it works. And I agree with you, he doesn't get it. He hasn't got it yet. How long will it take for him to get it? To get it. In other words, you can't run your businesses anymore. You cannot, treat trade like as if we're a Fortune 500 company that is the United States of America. You can't pretty much, in a sense, and I want to say it the way I want to say it, disrespect sacred land in North Dakota. You can't do that. I understand you want to look out for jobs and everything else. I'm all for it, but there has to be a better way, a different way. Why come can you use American steel? It doesn't matter. That's sacred land. You have to find another way to do this. I mean, there's a reason why Obama stopped it in the first place. But like I agree with you. He doesn't know what he's doing right now, and much of it are impeachable offenses. But if he doesn't rectify, like I said before, if he doesn't rectify himself and make a quick 180 or 360 or 270, wherever it is he had to make a turn, it's going to bite him in the ass, point blank.
All right, it's time for me to get up in here. I'm bringing back Dr. Watson for this. Listen, y'all. Listen. I find no bigger, since we're on hypocrisies, I find no bigger hypocrisy than with all those presidential vacation watchers, right? Who every time President Obama, former President Obama, would take a vacation, they would say, "Oh, he's taking too many vacation days. He's the vacationer in chief. He needs to focus on the world, on the problems with the world, and not play golf." Acting like the man didn't deserve a vacation for being president for 8 years. Who are all like, "Oh, President Obama's wasting our tax dollars." I find it funny how you all are so silent, since the fact that the actual vacationer / campaigner in chief, President Trump, is on his third freaking weekend in Florida. Third freaking weekend, and it just started. And I don't mean it like the song, it's the freaking weekend, baby, it's time to have me some fun. No, I don't mean it like the R. Kelly song. I mean, it is his third freaking weekend in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, vacationing on our tax dollars. But all y'all so silent. All the people who had no facts and were all like, Oh, President Obama took the most vacations a president ever had. No, dummies. He took the least. If you actually look up the numbers, he took the least vacation days of any president. There's that. The press conference. What can you say about that press conference yesterday? I watched the full thing. We got off work early. Was able to catch the whole entire thing. Was a disaster. The biggest lie in that whole press conference was he inherited a mess. No, Donald Trump, and I understand. Every president says they inherited a mess, but some presidents actually mean it. President Obama actually inherited a mess. He came in the middle of a recession, and
unemployment was 7.8.
Right. By all accounts, President Trump is going to have a thriving economy to mess up. And I hear people saying by the job numbers and by the Dow numbers that President Trump is doing something. No, you idiots. I keep telling you, this is still the Obama This is still the Obama economy until April to June when President Trump's policies actually have time to take shape and can either screw the economy or make it better. Matt touched on the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Keystone Access Pipeline. Lost in all that talk is the fact that secretly the Pennsylvania Senate approved the Pennsylvania pipeline to run through not Philadelphia, but to run through Montgomery County, run through a bunch of counties that have nothing to do with Philadelphia, but it's going to run right through there to go to New Jersey. So we really have three big pipelines because they have the Keystone/PA pipeline that they just approved again to run through Pennsylvania. So there's that too. There's three of them. So there's Dakota, which everybody hates. Which again everybody hates because it disproportionately affects Native Americans / the real Americans, Indians, and the press conference yesterday, I mean, Matt and Trey summed it up well. The press conference yesterday was a mess. It was full of lies. It was full of very unpresidential things. He made fun of the media, called everybody fake news except for some random conservative websites and news and television and radio stations that nobody has ever heard of. Said this might be the first presidential press conference that I've heard where somebody actually talked nicely about Rush Limbaugh. And we don't even have to get started on Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh enjoys the staying in Philadelphia for a very special reason with his insulting of Donovan McNabb. So he enjoys a special place in hell for that one. And he is the fact that we basically have state-sponsored media, which is any conservative site that you haven't heard of, or it's Fox News sometimes where you get like Fox and Friends, which I'm sure is unethical because as president, you're not supposed to be advertising people's TV shows from the White House. You're supposed to be bipartisan, not partisan, no matter what your party is. So you have that, and you have the Russia stuff. You have the fact that he spent more time talking about fake news than he did about, the Russian submarine that is roaming Connecticut and Delaware right now. I guess he can't figure out where to go. You have that. You have North Korea giving out cruise missiles. You have the fact that, President Trump is, just basically telling Israel, even though he put on a little bit of a front this week, told Israel, sending Israel mixed messages saying in public, oh, you know what, slow down on the settlements, while appointing somebody who's pro-settlement as ambassador to Israel. So we know where your actualities lie. And for people that say, oh, because I am a Christian, and we are supposed to stand with Israel and everything, but I don't stand with Israel when they're wrong. And in this case, kicking people out their homes, basically doing what amounts to apartheid in Israel. It's not right. And they do it on both sides, but it's not right when Israel does it. It's not right when Pakistan does it. It's not right when anybody does it. Because apartheid and doing anything based on identity is very wrong. So I'm not for that. I'm not for settlements as far as when it goes for Israel, because it doesn't help anything. It just furthers the cause of war and doesn't advertise stability. But I'm getting off topic here. President Trump has blown his chance for me because he continues to lie. He can't tell us the truth about his Russian connections. He can't tell us why. He can't answer the most important question: why, if you knew your national security advisor lied to you on January 26th, why did it take you 3 weeks to fire him? And then even before that, why did you then not tell your vice president, supposedly your number two, for 15 days after that? So you knew he lied, and you had your vice president partially incriminate himself by saying, I talked to Mike, because and you actually, Donald Trump is so bad. This is where we are right now. Donald Trump is so bad, I actually feel sorry for Mike Pence. Do you know how much of a supervillain Mike Pence is? I actually feel sorry for that man who he has to take orders from. And I don't know why.
If you really look at it this way, if you watch that interview from Face the Nation, you will see Mike Pence actually, I have never seen a vice president so clueless about anything. I've never seen a man so clueless.
That's because he actually was clueless.
It's like, you know what? You say if your vice president don't know what's going on, your national security advisor is flapping his gums, and it's a mess. And then Senator John McCain, who's a Republican himself, he takes no mess from nobody. Even he said himself like this, it's a mess. It's a total complete mess. But at the same time, that schmo voted for Senator DeVos and everybody else. I mean, come on.
Well, he didn't vote for Mulvaney though, so.
But he should have went with the Democrats and struck down no for Secretary of Education. I'm just saying.
Listen, we'll get to her in a minute, but like, he actually has me feeling sorry for Mike Pence. That in itself is something that I never thought I'd say in 2017. Because I don't live in Indiana, and I don't know too many people that live in Indiana. But from what I've heard about what he did in Indiana, he's almost as bad as Chris Christie. Almost. Might be worse, because I'm not from Indiana, so I don't know. But, it is hard. Every time you just hear so much stuff about how chaotic it is in the White House, how people backstab each other. And SNL made fun of it in a recent sketch, how President Trump is just the puppet president and the actual president is Steve Bannon. But you know what? We laugh at it every day, every Saturday night about the walking joke. But this is one of them things where art imitates reality, and I actually think that Steve Bannon is the actual president, because from what I hear, he actually takes marching orders more from Steve Bannon than he does. Basically, these are his actual cabinet members. It's Steve Bannon, Ivanka Trump, and Jared Kushner. So if you're not one of those three people, you don't really have President Trump's ear. That's where we are right now. When Ivanka Trump is the responsible adult in this presidency, that's where we are right now. That's exactly where we are right now. That's how lost we are. Go ahead, gentlemen. You can run back in here, and then we'll move.
It's a damn shame. You have Ivanka Trump as the only person with some type of sanity. That's a shame. I mean, you know, you keep you this is like it's only been was it 28 days, and it's a shame that they 2029. I can't remember, but it's the fact that we are seeing the transition. It was a mess in the transition team. It was a mess, and Trump has to get this. If he don't get this right, and I don't think he will, if he don't get this right, you heard it here. And I probably said it last week. I'll say it again. That man's gonna get impeached, and he will be impeached, and he will get kicked out because of the mess that he's making right now, and he does not understand how and why he's making this mess right now. And for SNL, look, as an artist who plays 6 instruments, the jokes write themselves, basically. So I don't know. Look, for me as an artist, for me who like the humor, please, I need 3-4 years of humor. I really do need it. Let's move on, if nothing else.
Trey, you want to get back in here? No, I guess not. Okay. Let's move right along then, gentlemen. Well, Trey didn't really have a chance to get in on the UConn discussion. You want to get in on that, Trey? I don't know where he went. He might be.
No, I guess we can go ahead and move on. I don't want to hold us up.
All right. So our next topic will be the Charles Oakley James Dolan situation. Oh, just from one mess to another. Guys, what did you think about that? Charles Oakley, James Dolan. Draymond Green weighed in talking about how it was slavery and all the other stuff, that James Dolan has a slave mentality, slave master mentality. Let me get the quote right. So, yeah, weigh in on that whole mess that the NBA has to deal with. Go ahead, Matt.
The New York Knickerbockers, as a franchise, is a mess. James Dolan has created a mess in New York. Everybody who has followed the NBA for quite some time know that Charles Oakley is a hothead, not just on the court, but off the court. You knew this man has issues. Now, to me, I look at it this way. It's the Knicks. The Knicks are a mess. The Knicks are atrocious. The Knicks are an embarrassment to the NBA. I thought the Sixers were bad. The Knicks are worse. The Knicks makes the Sixers look like the Patriots right now, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. The fact of the matter remains simple. James Dolan needs to shut up, go away. Just do not come out of your owner's hole and make an appearance. Just don't show up, because just by you opening your mouth, you just make the team worse. You just devalue this illustrious, historic, storied franchise that is the New York Knicks, who, oh, by the way, hasn't won a title since the 70s. Okay? When I see the New York Knicks, I mean, they're like the class organization in New York. I mean, you get the Knicks and get the Nets. I mean, it is what it is. But in New York, it's like, if you look for class organizations, the top tier, it's like they're the Yankees, they're the Rangers, they're the Giants, and the Knicks are up there on that list. Everybody else is basically the Nets, the Mets, the Jets, and the Islanders. But the fact of the matter remains simple: is you knew who Charles Oakley was, and to I think banning him was too because I didn't get too deep into what happened. But to ban him, it has to be something super serious, super serious. But that's Charles Oakley. You knew what this man was, and for Draymond, I think he backtracked that statement. Draymond Green did, but or clarified himself. But James Dolan is one of the most James Dolan is one of the most hated owners in sports right now. He's up there with Jerry Jones, but not in the sense of he's Jerry Jones and we hate the Dallas Cowboys. But it's more like James Dolan, dysfunctional franchise, and literally running that franchise down to the ground. And that's what's going on right now. It's embarrassing to watch Knicks basketball. It's embarrassing to see you're wasting talent. You're wasting Carmelo Anthony's talent. You're bringing a busted up Derrick Rose, who is pretty much at the tail end of his career right now. And you expect – I'm not a Knicks fan. And you expect me to accept this? Not just a product on the floor, but literally just a franchise. It's unacceptable. It is like a joke. And the way they handle that situation, I disagree with it. They could have handled it differently, but it's James Dolan. He's going to do what he wants. And as far as I'm concerned, he's going to sell the team.
All you, Trey.
The New York Knicks. Such a poorly run organization. You thought that maybe, the Zen Master would come in and do something great for the New York Knicks and possibly bring Carmelo Anthony a championship. But alas, his efforts are futile. If anything, his efforts have been counterproductive. And recently we saw Charles Oakley, who was clearly kicked out of a New York Knicks game unprovoked. He kind of put his hand on the security guard, and so that we know, like Matt said, we know who Charles Oakley is. Back in the day, I guess he played in the late '80s, early '90s. But actually, I guess it was late '80s.
You're right.
Early '90s into the 2000s. Because he played something like 20 years in the league. But he was a fierce guy on the court. You didn't want to mess with Charles Oakley. He's not the type of guy you want to get into a fight with. But I don't think that has anything to do with why he got kicked out of the game. I think it was more politics. For whatever reason, and I can't speak on this because I'm not well read on some of the beef that Charles Oakley and James Dolan have, but I think it was just more politics. They have past issues, and James Dolan just decided, that he was going to kick him out for no reason. Charles Oakley has come out and said this, and he's even asked some of the fans who were sitting in the same area as where he was sitting, to come out and give, witness statements that, that nothing had happened beforehand that would have warranted him being kicked out of the game.
You mean sitting?
Huh?
You mean sitting and not shitting?
Yeah, sitting. Yes. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I definitely think it had to do a lot more with politics. I use that word figuratively. But it's just crazy to see how much of a dumpster fire this organization has become. I mean, it already had been, one of the bigger dumpster fires in terms of organizations in the NBA. Um, but like you have this situation with Charles Oakley, you have the whole situation with Carmelo Anthony and whether or not he's going to be traded, and it looks like he won't be traded. And I never thought he would be traded because I can't see Carmelo waiving his no trade clause. You've got Phil Jackson like literally throwing Carmelo under the bus and sending him sending subliminal messages to media outlets. And like all this all this piled up on top of each other, and it's like, what in the world is going on with the New York Knicks? But yeah, like you had Draymond Green came out and said, to him, well, originally what he said was um, that James Dolan has this slave master mentality, meaning that the Madison Square Garden is James Dolan, like he owns it. That's his plantation, and he can do whatever he wants with his plantation. And if that means kicking out, I don't know if Charles Oakley is a Hall of Famer at this point, but he potentially is a Hall of Famer, or he was a very loved player for the New York Knicks. Hall of Fame in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's definitely in the New York Knicks Hall of Fame. Like you have beef with one of their better players, of all time. And I don't know, like it's James Dolan, so that's what Draymond Green was saying, and he did not step back from those statements. He just clarified what he was meaning, clarify that he doesn't necessarily think that James Dolan maybe, and I think he was just doing this to calm the storm. That I think what he meant was, because we know Draymond Green is a very outspoken person. I think what he meant was, that James Dolan truly does have a slave master mentality. But what he, clarified I guess it was on a radio station, was that to him, that's what it looked like, is that James Dolan had a slave master mentality. And to be honest with you, I agree, because I mean, that's really, to me, from my perspective, that's what happened. Like James Dolan felt like, he has, ownership over Madison Square Garden and the New York Knicks, which he does. But he has this mentality that, if he doesn't like somebody, and because he has, that power to do so, he can just kick somebody out because he can. He doesn't like them because of past issues or whatever. And I believe, James Dolan tried to invite Charles Oakley back, and Charles Oakley declined. And if I were Charles Oakley too, I would, why would I want to? It's crazy, because imagine, if you will, like you're a beloved New York Knicks player, where you play for 20 years. You put your heart and soul into the game. You put in all the hard work and everything, and you had, if not an NBA Hall of Fame, you had a New York Knicks basketball Hall of Fame career. And you come into the place where you've done, you did this for 20 years, and the owner of the team, doesn't like you, and you're not well, at least by, the slave master, the massa of Madison Square Garden says that you're not allowed, or when you come to a game, you're kind of like, you're kind of looking around like, where's Dolan at? Does he see me? Does he know I'm here? Am I gonna get kicked out? And that's a shame. Like Charles Oakley has to go through that, but the media, and I think this has to do with James Dolan, painted that situation as if Charles Oakley was the bad guy. And to me, I can't see how you can, if you really look at the situation for what it is, read about it from both sides, not just biased media outlets that were trying to paint Charles Oakley as someone who needed help, which made no sense. To me, I'm on Charles Oakley's side, because it just, like, it was and unprofessional for James Dolan to do something like that. Just just kick somebody out, especially Charles Oakley. Just because.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna make it a clean sweep. Obviously, it was not a good look for James Dolan to flash his ownership muscles at the particular time he decided to flash them. Uh, and obviously, he set up Charles Oakley very well because we all know that Charles Oakley, even though he's a great player, he's not he much like Dennis Rodman. He has some issues that he needs to work out, and anybody who can put up and be friends with Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley at the same time must have the patience of a saint to dealing with both Michael, and I love Michael Jordan. He's one of my favorite basketball players. He is my favorite basketball player. But you have Charles Oakley puts up with him and Charles Barkley. So that man is a saint in my book because he deals with both of those strong personalities. Excuse me. And so I think he was set up. Now you have to look at when James Dolan decided to flex his ownership muscles. And you have to speak fluent, how do I put this delicately? You have to speak fluent, passive aggressive to understand, why, James Dolan chose that time to kick Charles Oakley. Because I'm pretty sure it was the first time Charles Oakley was in Madison Square Garden. But when you realize that, Charles Oakley was kicked out during a nationally televised game when the Knicks were playing, the Clippers. And so, James Dolan particularly wanted to make a show because I guess, he saw Charles Oakley. Charles Oakley was probably somebody who was on his crap list because Charles Oakley is not shy about sharing his feelings about Dolan. The reason why the Knicks suck is because of two people, James Dolan and Phil Jackson. What is this show coming to? Well, I'm feeling sorry for Mike Pence and the New York Knicks, a New York franchise, in the same episode. What is wrong with me? That's how bad this got. And so you have the Knicks who are in the James Dolan clutch here, kind of like how the Clippers were. I hate to make this comparison because James Dolan and what's the man? Donald Sterling are obviously two different people. I don't think James Dolan is as racist as as Donald Sterling was, but you never know. So you have all that, and he chose the nationally televised game, had 6 security guards run up on Oakley and tell him you got to get out. And we know how delicate Charles Oakley is, and how he doesn't particularly like people being close to him. He pushed and shoved, so it made him look like, oh look, it's the angry tall black man. And then the story just basically wrote itself because all people saw was 6 security guards getting beat up by Charles Oakley. That's really all they saw. And then the story ran wild from there, where you had people saying, well, what's up with Charles Oakley? What happened? And James Dolan was able to come out and say, play the victim and say, oh, Charles Oakley has been abusing me. He studied in the Donald Trump school of making people seem like victims. Oh, I was victimized by the tall, angry black man who was making fun of me for owning the New York Knicks and signing his retirement checks. He doesn't like me because of how I run the Knicks. And, look at him. Look how angry he is. He's obviously not stable. So then, he had Oakley. He obviously took account for. Now, some people may say I'm giving James Dolan too much credit, but I don't think I'm giving him too much credit because I definitely think that this isn't beyond him to plan it like this, to wait until there's a nationally televised game and decide to kick Charles Oakley out on that game, just so it can look like, Charles Oakley is out of control and unstable, and then you have a reason to kick him out, and no one will question you. So you had that, and it's just very suspect. And then like the next televised game, he had Latrell Sprewell, another one who's kind of up there in the craziness too. Yeah, Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnson, and others come out at the San Antonio Spurs game and be representing the Knicks faithful, and I was just like, so you're using the classic, oh look, all the other people love me, so it's not me, it's Oakley. So you gotta still make it Oakley look like the villain. So much so that Michael Jordan and Adam Silver had to have a private teleconference call this week with both of those players to get them to reconcile with each other, because reality and look be danged, because James Dolan decided to use the a televised game to make a statement and be a dictator. How dare you talk about me? Get out my stadium. And so you have that, and the Knicks are horrible. Matt and Trey summed it up well. The Knicks are horrible. I'm feeling sorry for a New York Knicks franchise. I guess I added the mental capacity of what I think James Dolan is. He played it very well. He made it as a person with a journalism and communications degree who studies how you message and how you do stuff and how you play stuff to come out to have your message get out. He played it very well. He waited. He took advantage of Charles Oakley's anger, had 6 security guards run up on him, made it look like Charles Oakley was out of control, had a reason to ban him. Then the story came out, and he talked about how, he was abusing him, made him sound like a stereotypical angry black man from the jump, had a reason to ban him. Nobody asked any questions. And people, like Trey said, people were running with the story. Oakley really didn't have a chance. If it wasn't really for Stephen A. Smith and Chris Paul, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade coming up to his defense of Carmelo Anthony, because Carmelo Anthony has no cares left to give at this point, coming up and defending him. So, it is what it is. And on Draymond Green is completely right. I would have been totally fine if he didn't clarify it. But I guess he had to clarify it because people are like, well, what you mean, Draymond? Well, what you try to say? Slavery is wrong. And in basketball and football have this in common. They have very cutthroat owners who will use the players up and then kick them out, and then just feeds the machine and everything else. So Matt looks like he's had something to say, like he disagrees. So go ahead, Matt.
I don't agree. It's not a disagreement, actually. I agree. I agree with this. I'll repeat it. The New York Knickerbocker franchise is a joke. It's a running joke. I mean, it's like one of those things to where as though I don't know what the Knicks are. I mean, watching Charles Oakley play, and you go ahead and drive down the lane with Oakley and Ewing, good luck to you surviving. But anyway, everybody knew Charles Oakley is. And you pretty much disrespected that man, particularly in basically a national game. And then you go say face. Yeah, Brock Moore's great. So I'm like, come on, bro. Come on. I agree. It's a joke. It's a running joke. James Dolan needs to go back to the hole from whence he came and don't come back out. Okay? Find another face of the franchise. If it's Phil, let it be Phil. If it's somebody else, let it be somebody else. But it cannot be James Dolan. It cannot be, because frankly, we have seen, it's like he's running. No, but here's another one. Sell the team. Sell the team. Yes, the New York Knicks is a blockbuster franchise. It makes hundreds of millions of dollars, if not darn in the billions. But sell the team. Sell the team now because evidently you ran the team to the ground. The team has not fared well. And Carmelo, you're wasting Carmelo Anthony's talent. That if I was Carmelo Anthony, I'll wave my no drink. I will wave it as fast as a New York minute. Seriously, because the team's a joke. Why would you subject yourself to such mediocrity? Why? I mean, just to watch ESPN.
I'll give you, not to cut you off, I'll give you 60 million reasons why.
I'll be like, look, I don't care. My thing is simply this: that New York franchise is done. It's done. It really is. And to treat and literally disrespect a New York Knicks great like that is beyond me. And I hope things do get reconciled and everything else, but the damage has already been done. It's been done. It's a joke. Watching New York Knicks basketball ain't the same anymore. It's never. I mean, it's one thing to watch the Boston Celtics, which makes me gag and puke, but at least I can enjoy Celtic basketball. I can't believe I said that. But watching the Knicks is a joke.
If you have anything to add, go ahead, Trey.
I mean, other than the fact that, I mean, it's clear that they're a dumpster fire of an organization, and James Dolan really pulled a Donald Trump and, wrote an executive order that said that Charles Oakley should be kicked out of Madison Square Garden. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. They're a dumpster fire of an organization, and unfortunately, Carmelo. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to win a championship, regardless of where he is. But I mean, unfortunately, he's going to be stuck here probably for the rest of his career, and that's a shame. But that's what it is.
Yeah, so we're gonna give the basketball talk a little bit of a rest. I'm gonna let Matt come up in here and talk about the Phillies and hockey and all that update stuff that we need for the other sports that we don't particularly cover. So go ahead, Matt.
Flyers are going to hell in a handbasket because they can't find a way to score to save their lives. Yes, you are 2 points. You are 2 points away from your eighth spot, from the eighth spot in the Eastern Conference in the NHL, but yet you cannot find a way to score. You're how can I put this? I was listening to the 90 WIP 94.1 the other day, and talking about what the Flyers was a conversation. Now it's like this. I agree with this. Your goaltender, Steve Mason, is really who he is. That's the bottom line. He is who he is. And the way this team is being constructed through the draft is taking forever. Yes? Yeah, I mean, look, Ron Hextall is preaching patience, but we all know full damn well Ron Hextall ain't the most patient guy in the world. We see him on the ice. He'll go across the other ice to get into a fight. I'm not playing that game, but it seems they're drafting well, but as far as free agency is concerned, it just doesn't look good. But back to this, Flyers need to score. They need to score goals, and if you want, and for this Flyers team, it is, particularly with this fan base, it's mandatory that you make the playoffs. It's mandatory that you win in the playoffs if you get kicked out the first round. It's mandatory to get in. The way this because of the success of this franchise, it's mandatory. And to have a 10-game win streak, and next thing you know, you can't find yourself since then. It's a problem. and the Flyers need to find themselves quick before hell freezes over. It's with that being said, baseball, I love it. It's exciting the fact to see baseball again. Like I said last week, Pete McCann did bring this up too. The fact that his team has to do better from last year. With that be, I know Freddie Galvis, he wants to capitalize on his offensive numbers, but I don't want him hitting 20 home runs. I need him to get on base. Cesar Hernandez, I expect him to continue his form from the second half of last season. But one thing this team has more than anything else from the last few years is pitching depth. They got that, and also a boatload of one-year contracts to unload if need be. This team, I expect this team basically to be better than last year, but at least 78 wins will do it for me. 78. I don't see this team winning. If you think this team's going to win 92, 94 games, put the bottle down. Put the weed down. Stay off the weed, okay? Because this team is who it is. This team is what it is. But the most part, we all want to see what the minor league is going to do when they come up here. Nick versus like Roman Quinn, Crawford, and the like. And for the first time ever, there is nobody from the 2008 squad on this roster. That's right. There is no Ryan Howard. There is no Carlos Ruiz. Nobody. Gone. They're all gone. We're starting from scratch. And guess what? If things go the way they're supposed to go, give them another year or two. This team will be a playoff contender before you know it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now I'll ask this question: how many went over under 77 wins? Over under 77 wins. Where do you think the Phillies would end the season? That's my only question.
Okay. Well, moving right along. Thank you, Matt, for the updates. We're gonna do some little rearranging of these topics real quick. So does T.O. deserve to be a Hall of Famer? We've kind of left the T.O. news in the hangar. So there was 1.5 stubs during the Hall of Fame thing, during the Hall of Fame announcement a couple weeks ago. And the one that I'm talking about is Ryan Dawkins, but certain people on this podcast think that T.O. should be on in the Hall of Fame, and I'm gonna let everyone get their opinions in. So we're gonna start with the man with the strong opinion. Go ahead, Trey.
Yes, T.O. is a Hall of Famer. T.O., I believe, is third all time in catches and receiving yards, and I think he's somewhere in the top. I believe he's somewhere in the top 15 or something like that in terms of touchdowns. So the stats are there. The eye test says that what he did on the field should have warranted that he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Yet many believe that he was not. That he should not be a Hall of Famer because of some of the off-field shenanigans and even some of the on-field and locker room shenanigans. And that's what makes him not worthy of being at least a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because I mean, if you don't believe that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, I do believe that he is a Hall of Famer for that matter. To me, I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but just because of just alone on stats, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, was on the field, he dominated. You know, wherever he went, the team played well. Like, you know, so I mean, it's. I mean, I mean, that's how I feel about it. Like, um, I was talking to somebody on Sunday, um, and I mentioned we were talking about an NBA player, Manu Ginobili, and whether or not he was a Hall of Famer. And if you look at his stats, he's not a Hall of Famer. And in truth be told, you know, by the eye test, maybe his impact in the game was maybe Hall of Fame worthy, but unfortunately, he's not a Hall of Famer. Um, you know, but on the other end of the spectrum, you have somebody like Terrell Owens who, you know, he has the stats to prove that he should be a Hall of Famer. You know, I think he's third all time catches and receiving yards, and he's top 15 touchdowns. He never had a ring. And in my opinion, I don't think that is one of the. I don't think that that's a primary reason why somebody should be a Hall of Famer. Um, I saw an article earlier about, or somewhere about whether or not it might have been something by Kylan wrote, but whether or not Donovan McNabb should be a Hall of Famer, and whether or not, you know, the fact that he does not have a ring, whether that impacts whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. And to me, the fact that T.O. doesn't have a ring doesn't impact, you know, whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. Just let's say you're just solely talking about stats, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm not just talking about solely stats. I'm talking about, you know, stats wise, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. His impact on the field, wherever he went, you know, he had success, and the team had success. I believe he had his best year in the year he played for the Eagles, and we went to the Super Bowl. And he played with a broken leg. He played with a broken leg, man, in the Super Bowl. Like think about that. He played with a broken leg. He played with a broken leg in the Super Bowl, and if we had won that game, he would have been MVP. He had a great game with a broken leg. T.O. is by far a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I do agree with you, Kyle. And you mentioned that you said there was 1.5 snubs. I say there was 2 snubs, Brian Dawkins and T.O., who were both at one point. Well, Brian Dawkins was a lifetime Eagle, but T.O. was at one point an Eagle. But yeah, Brian Dawkins definitely is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you know, just because of his impact on the field. I mean, they even made a rule for Brian Dawkins. I don't even know if they call it the Brian. You know, I don't know what kind of rule they call it, but I believe he was the reason they made the rule that that you're not allowed to lay out. Like if you're going to tackle somebody, you can't lunge in midair to tackle the person. But Hall of Famer, and in my opinion, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I agree. Man, it should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, I don't understand why these writers have so much biasness when it comes down to voting selection. I do agree with the fact that, you know, the numbers speaks for itself. The eye test speaks for itself. You know, it screams Hall of Fame. But the only reason why that man is not in the Hall of Fame is because the way he destroyed locker rooms. And which brings to this question: should you judge a player on his accomplishments on the field, or both on and off the field? And I think it goes back to I'm gonna put this out there, even though it's a different sport. Pete Rose. Even though that man gambled on baseball, and it's clear as day, you're not supposed to do that. It's on every note, every notice on all 30 major league ball clubs. So you like basically saying you're not allowed to gamble. Yet this man did it anyway because this man had an addiction. And Pete Rose, not the most talented guy on the baseball field, goes out and hit 4,000 some odd hits. I think it's 4,200 some change. I can't remember the number right now. And that man, if you listen to him talk baseball, you listen to Pete Rose talk about, hitting, the man oozes with a boatload of knowledge because he knows how to hit. He is the hit king, but he's not in the Hall of Fame because of that band and because of Eli and all the other stuff. With same thing here, similar to this here. He literally T.O. dismantled locker rooms, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of voters pretty much hold that grudge. It's like, my thing is simply this: I don't care what you do off. We're not here to be called the moral police of sports. That's not our job. If you as a voter, that's not your job. You're not here to become the moral police. Be honest with you. If that was the case, Tim Tebow would be in the Hall of Fame right now. But that's not going to happen. That will never happen. And you can be the nicest guy and still suck. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter, or you can suck up to the media, suck up to everyone, and still stink. The fact of the matter is, what have you done on the field? This man literally plays Super Bowl 39 on one leg. For literally 140 some odd yards. Okay, that man creates a lot of attention that opens up the field for a lot of people, including Todd Pinkston. Excuse me. He is a Hall of Famer. Ballot 5, first ballot Hall of Famer. And to omit this man because, he tore up a locker room, who the hell are you? This man literally, yes, from San Francisco to Philadelphia, we as Eagle fans literally worship the ground that he walked on because he was one piece that we needed to get over the hump, get to the Super Bowl, and possibly win one, just one. And we all see how that happened with, work Jackson Smith for the team and him working on his driveway. That's neither here nor there. Next question. But the thing is simply this. You say what you want about that man. He literally is a bona fide Hall of Famer. If you look at even take the eye test, he's one of the most physical receivers I have ever seen. And I haven't seen since he throw Megatron. But literally, he's a physical receiver. Any team would kill to have Terrell Owens like talent. Every team would kill to have that. But with that being said, you should not take morality into consideration, and you should, because if you want to put morality in, a lot of people shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. A lot of people should have not been even close to the Hall of Fame. In fact, many of the Raiders of the 70s shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame at all. If you want to go that route, nice guy, Jim Marshall. You want to go that route? Let's go try this. Jim Marshall, great guy, right? He's still not out in the Hall of Fame yet. He's the Iron Man of football. Played in I think all 4, if not 3, of the Minnesota Vikings Super Bowls. Never won a title. One of the main anchors of the Purple People Eaters of that defense, and he's not in the Hall of Fame because he went the wrong way on a fumble. So, if we're going to penalize people on mistakes on and off the field, a lot of these people should not even be in the Hall of Fame in the first place. But you look at the accomplishments, look at the body of work, and that's the key, the body of work. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Jim Marshall should be in the Hall of Fame. I could go as far in baseball, and I'm making my stake on this. Dick Allen should be in the Hall of Fame. One of the greatest players not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's neither here nor there. But T.O. should be in the Hall of Fame. Next question. I said next question.
Oh, my bad. My bad, y'all. So it's my turn to weigh in. I think T.O. Is definitely a I've come around on this. He definitely does. He's top 3 in receiving yards. He definitely did deserve Hall of Fame consideration. Maybe not first ballot, but he definitely deserves to be a Hall of Famer. It's probably a little bit good for him to wait a little bit. He'll probably go in next year. We'll see. But I'm more upset about Brian Dawkins not getting in than I am about T.O. because I know T.O.'s going to get in regardless. I don't know about Brian Dawkins. I think Brian Dawkins should have been in with other people. And when I think Hall of Fame, and I know Trey hates this, I think titles and, with the people who they nominated, who they put in, I guess. LaDainian Tomlinson has no titles. Not Ray Lewis. There's a bunch of people in there that Terrell Davis, he has 2 because of John Elway, but there are so many different things going on with that, and I guess he's gonna learn something about waiting. Maybe he'll learn to treat people better, and we'll see. But hopefully Brian Dawkins will get it. That's the most important person who needs to get it. In all honesty. But the next question is, our favorite governor, not from Pennsylvania, Chris Christie, ran his mouth about Matt's favorite team. Is and the question is Christie just trolling, or is he looking for his new career as a shock jock, or is he being stupid, or is he trying to be the number 1 enemy in Philadelphia? Go ahead, Matt, since it's your team.
Chris Christie's being stupid. That's why I don't listen to Cowboys fans, okay? I mean, look. First of all, the Philadelphia. I'm taking a homer route in this one. The Phillies fan base actually is literally one of the best fan bases in baseball. Actually, if you really sit down and think about it, this baseball team, this fan base, it travels very well. Very well. And to say that we're a bitter franchise, excuse me? The fact of the matter is simply this. We know our baseball. We don't take no mess from nobody. And for Chris Christie to say some stuff like that, I don't know. Honestly, at one point liked the guy. I thought I liked the guy. But the more he opens his mouth, the more you just want to punch him in the face, okay? Stay on your North Jersey side of the state, okay? Stay over there. You cowboy loving piece of crap. I mean, you look. The fact of the matter is simply this. This is according. I'm gonna quote the great late Harry Kalas. He said this is the best fan base in the world, and rightfully so. I mean, this team literally travels well. This team has one of the biggest spring training attendance in all of baseball. I mean, I don't know why. From what I've been told, Clearwater is awesome. Okay. The thing is simply this: he can say what you want. He can say what he wants. He has every right to say what he wants. And when he said those remarks, I laughed. I actually did laugh. I'm like, you know what? I know you do not like Philadelphia. I can care less if you don't like Philadelphia. The fact, I think his team is the Yankees. I'm not sure. But my thing is simply this: it don't phase me. I
You're
know
right,
what this
it's the
fan.
Yankees. You're right. It's the Yankees.
Oh, look, the Yankees are like the Dallas Cowboys and the Boston Celtics and everything. Either you like them or you hate them. There's no middle ground. And for the Phillies, they're in the America. For the Phillies, the Yankees are in the American League. The Phillies are in the National League. Stay in your own lane. So, with that being said, it's like, you know, we don't care. We just don't care. I mean, we know what this fan base is. We know the fact that we're rebuilding right now. The fact that it's been 10 almost, this is 9 years since our last title. 8-9 years since the last title. Okay? The fact of the matter is we're good. We're fine. This is one of the best fan bases in all of baseball. So if he wants to talk, let him talk. I could care less, honestly. I can honestly care less.
Trey, you got something?
To be honest with you, when I heard about this, I was like, "What? Like Chris Christie? Like what? Like to be honest with you, I don't care. I could care less what Chris Christie thinks about Phillies fans or Philadelphia fans. Like, I mean, like who cares? It's Chris Christie. Like, I mean, and then what's his name? Jim Kenny tried to defend Phillies fans and say that Chris Christie is a bully and kind of you know uh, kind of lashed out on him for his failed presidential campaign. I think the Phillies Twitter
He did throw some
they
shade
tweeted
though
out
on the front.
right, yeah, but they tweeted out, we love our fans, and typical you know organizational stuff to call stuff like this. But like, I mean, hey, it's just a bunch of stupid nonsense. Like who cares about what Chris Christie thinks about Phillies fans? What did he say? I think he said something along those lines that they suck, and that we're bitter, angry fans. And I mean, I don't know what fan base he holds to. I imagine that maybe he's a Mets fan or a Yankees fan, but I mean, it's Chris Christie. Like, who really cares what Chris Christie thinks? To be honest, um, I mean that's how I feel. Because when I saw it, I was like, what? Chris Christie says that Phillies fans suck and the fans are angry and bitter. All right, whatever. I'm gonna. I'm not gonna pass out. I'm not gonna die because Chris Christie said that I'm a bitter Phillies fan. Whatever.
Oh well, Chris Christie. I'm making a clean sweep. Nobody really cares what Chris Christie thinks, especially in Philadelphia. He's New Jersey's problem. He's not our problem. And, he's just. I took it like this. He's looking for a new career. He's doing the popular thing over here, which is to diss Philly, this the big city closest to you. Sort of like how Trump is doing with Chicago. It's just the way they do it, man. It's just the way they roll. They pick the worst thing in the city and try to overblow it. And for some reason, he decided to pick the baseball team that a lot of his constituents go see in the summer and in the spring. So, I would just say that if you are not happy with the feelings that Chris Christie made to your favorite baseball team, and if you are a New Jersey resident, call him and let him know. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Chris Christie, I think, should just stick to politics, stick to defending himself when it comes to why he closed the bridge, and leave it at that. Just don't try to build a bridge over here to Philly because we don't want you anymore. We never wanted you, but stay over there. And that's my thoughts on it. Who, like Trey said, who really cares what Chris Christie has to say? I don't really care. He's just trying to get a radio station. A radio station. A radio job. That's what I think in sports radio. But we're going to move on to our beloved Eagles. We're going to ask a couple questions, but it'll be a two-parter, and I'll go first. So the questions are: what should the Eagles do with Jason Peters, and do the Eagles really have a chance at Alshon Jeffrey? Go ahead, Trey.
Well, I mean, you kind of already know how I feel about what they should do in free agency and the draft, and whether or not we should get Alshon Jeffrey. Should we go for Kenny Stills? Should we not go for either of them and go for I maybe like a Kenny Britt, a career high year last year, and or should we not even pay attention to wide receiver in free agency and go, somehow trade up and get Mike Williams or take Corey Davis? But I mean, I feel like if the Eagles are in position, the Eagles have about $15 million in cap space, and if they cut Jason Kelce and if they're able to rework some contracts and they cut Connor Barwin, they'll probably have more like 22 or 23. And rumor has it that the Bull, or not the Bulls, the other Chicago team, the Bears have already offered Alshon Jeffrey a contract that's worth somewhere between 12 and 13 million a year. So if the Eagles are able to have about 23 million in cap space, and they want to throw maybe 14 million at Alshon Jeffrey, if you believe that Alshon Jeffrey is the missing piece on the offense that can really help Carson Wentz move forward as a player, then hey, go for. I mean, we argue about kind of details about who, we should go after this free agent. No, this free agent fits better. Oh no, we should go get this player in the draft. And in reality, if the Eagles do have a chance of getting Alshon Jeffrey, and I believe they may actually have a chance, and it's clear that they're going hard after him, then I think they should do it. The problem is, in a I guess you could say a wide receiver weak free agency. I mean, there's a number of wide receivers that teams are going to be going after, but I mean, it's really top heavy. Really, the top wide receivers in free agency are Alshon Jeffrey, Kenny Stills, Deshaun Jackson, and Pierre Garcon. And there's another number of teams that are looking for talent at the wide receiver position. So all of those guys are going to demand a fair amount of money. Alshon Jeffrey and Kenny Stills. I mean, we talk about getting Kenny Stills, but I mean, Kenny Stills played well for Miami and is probably going to get paid. Fair, he's going to get his fair share of money as well. So if you're thinking, let's say Kenny Stills is worth, something like 9 or 10, and you have that extra cap space from, cutting Connor Barwin, Jason Kelce, maybe reworking Jason Peters' contract and Nelson Aguilar's contract. But if you want to throw that extra $5 million in there to give it to Alshon Jeffrey, and you feel that, in terms of injury history, he's kind of moved. He's moved past that, and if he's really moved past his injury history, he's shown that when he's healthy and he's on the field, he's a top 10 receiver in the league. So, I'm all for the Eagles going for Alshon Jeffrey if they believe that he can really be the difference maker on offense. There are a number of other teams that are going after him. The only thing I don't want the Eagles to do, and I don't want Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie to do, is to reach too hard for Alshon Jeffrey and overpay him. If they can get if they can give him 14 or 15 million, or even maybe even lower than that, maybe 12 or 13, you do that. if getting Alshon Jeffrey means paying him, 21, 22 million or some high number, in the from the 18 to 20 range, then I think that would be a reach. And at that point, you say, okay, we have to go elsewhere, and whether that means Kenny Stills or Pierre Garcon, or even maybe a lower tier guy, maybe like a Willie Snead, or even maybe a Kenny Britt, who's not really going to be worth much in free agency, and then doing what you got to do in the draft. One of the things, and this might be wishful thinking, I was talking to a friend. If you didn't know, there were rumors about LeSean McCoy being cut by the Bills. And obviously the Eagles will definitely be a destination for him if he does get cut. I don't see him getting cut, but if he were to get cut, the Eagles would then not really need to draft Dalvin Cook. And to me, if you don't have the draft Dalvin Cook, your next two biggest needs would be either wide receiver or cornerback. And if you go hard after Alshon Jeffrey, you're able to somehow work a contract with LeSean McCoy. I believe he's still under contract, and he's worth, I think, $7 million. Let's say you give Alshon Jeffrey 13, 14, and that 7 you take on LeSean McCoy's 7 or 8 million. That space that you have, really. And then in the draft, instead of going wide receiver, you can go cornerback and take, and maybe even move up and get one of those top tier guys like a Desmond King or a Tre'Davious White. And I mean, things would be looking good with LeSean McCoy. Now you have Alshon Jeffrey, and now you've got, maybe a Tre'Davious White, a young corner who can grow up next to Jalen Mills. I mean, that's my feelings on the Eagles going after Alshon Jeffrey.
Originally, I thought about Deshaun Jackson, bringing Deshaun back, but what makes it more enticing? Also Jeffrey is more enticing than Deshaun at this point. Probably much of his age. As I'm thinking about, okay, what the Eagles need to do and where to go and what their needs are. Of course, their need is wide receiver, obviously, running back, and secondary. That's the obvious need. Now, I'm not too privy on the salary cap as far as football is concerned, but I believe you may have to cut some players. You may have to cut. I don't want to cut Peters, but I may have to cut Peters. I may have to cut Connor Barwin, or cut all three, including Mathis, just to create that cap space. And you can make those and for the Eagles to have more flexibility in the salary cap department. With that being said, I believe, because I'm not too sold on Kenny Stills at the moment. Personally, I'm not really too sold on him. However, I will say that Alshon Jeffrey will be number one choice for me. Then Deshaun Jackson 2, Pierre Garcon 3, Kenny Stills like 4 somewhere. But we do. But as far as the draft is concerned, I mean, I'm more like, you know what? If Cook is there, fine. If he's not, you might either draft a draft a corner or draft a corner or get an offensive lineman, because you have to compete with the Dallas Cowboys now. They built that team through the draft. If you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you gotta get this right. You have to get this offseason right. You have to. The Dallas Cowboys are right now I cannot believe I'm saying this, the team to beat in the division. They have to. I mean, I know the Giants cut fit the Cruz. So the question is, do you take Cruz? So you take fit the Cruz if, but the only thing is he's been injury prone the last few years. I believe the Eagles need to cut at least one or two players to have at least some cap space. Plus, now you're in the 4-3 defense. So we'll see what the Eagles do. But I'm becoming more and more sold on Alshon Jeffrey than I am having a retread with Deshaun Jackson. So we'll see how this pans out. Next question.
Yeah, so y'all already know how I feel about this as far as Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey is one of the Eagles' leading target in free agency. And he deserves to be because the Eagles need a number one wide receiver. And I know Trey is a fan of, if you can't get him, waiting and seeing or wait until the draft because people like Mel Kiper have the Eagles trading up and getting his favorite wide receiver, Mike Williams, which could work. We'll see. If he's available, I think they should definitely take him. Going along with that, I just think that Alshon Jeffrey should be the target because they wasted all that time getting his wide receiver coach to come to Philly. So what good is all that if you don't get a better wide receiver? I'm just saying my number one thing with the Eagles is this. By the end of the draft, by the end of free agency, by August, by late July 2017, when they're having the open practices and everybody's at the link, somebody better be saying Alshon Jeffrey or Mike Williams or Dalvin Cook. And we just need a good wide receiver. And as far as Jason Peters, if he refuses to renegotiate his contract, I know he's been good for the Eagles since they traded for him in the late 2000s, but it's time for him to go. If you don't do a pay cut, it's time to trade him like we're trading Kendricks. And I think a package of Kendricks and Peters and maybe Jason Kelce can get the Eagles into the top 5 if they really wanted to. Because Howie somewhat knows how to trade picks. So if nothing else, that can work. So moving right along, gentlemen, we're gonna move on to a little bit more of a serious topic. Then we'll get into basketball as we go into our final couple topics, really. Michigan State. We're going to have a Michigan State update by yours truly. Michigan State, the cops at Michigan State have requested 4, count them 4, not 55 like Baylor, but 4 warrants for the arrest of a couple football players. In the actuality, it's 6, but they want to question the other 2 of them. So it's really 4 warrants and 2 interviews. So, that's where we are right now with Michigan State. It should be pointed out that Michigan State and the football team are fully cooperating. No one is trying to hide anything. So that should be pointed out. So the question is, gentlemen, is Michigan State the next college campus to go belly up because of, not that Michigan State will go out of business or close any Michigan State alumni, students, or fans that like this podcast? I'm not calling your school out for that in any way. But is Michigan State going to get turned upside down because of these sexual assaults? Is this the new? Will they find the culture at Michigan State? And I know these are questions that really have yet to be answered, but we can speculate. That's what all good sports shows do. So go ahead, Matt.
To answer your question, I don't know. I think the magnitude for Baylor is huge, but for Michigan State, I don't know. I really don't know because, again, it's a culture that has to be destroyed. Actually, I mean, I don't know what. As I'm thinking about this, as far as college sports and all you hear is in college football, mostly college football than any other sport, which really doesn't think about it, leads me to believe this. There has to be something in their in their whatever for making these mistakes. You don't hear in basketball very much. You don't hear it with any other sport, particularly. You not much, if anything. You hear it most with football players, and for me is it does raise a lot of eyebrows, and it also raises more concerns about their judgment making skills, the decision making skills. You don't. It worries me. It really worries me. And when it comes down to it, I think stuff is going on in their minds. Particularly, we talk about concussions, CTE, and the like. You know, it is very. I mean, particularly these are young guys. These are young men. They're in their minds. They're still growing psychologically till they're 25 years old. So a lot of stuff is something about that's going on, in my opinion, that I think needs to be researched, studied, because this is it's becoming an epidemic. If not, it's reaching epidemic levels, and colleges programs have to take responsibility. And seeing that this is a college or / university, I hope if they haven't to study this, to study football players as to why why these behaviors are running rampant. So, like I said, for me, it is unacceptable, no doubt. It is not right to condone such behavior. But now, I think we should, in my opinion, I think we need to start looking at things differently. It's more of the cause, not just why these players are doing it, but more of like, this is you playing football, and this is happening to mostly football players. Something is going on, and it needs to be researched, particularly in college sports, because it's if we don't find out, if we don't, get to the nitty gritty of what's going on, that is going to run rampant. It's going to get to epidemic proportions, and then the NCAA has a huge problem in their hands. So I think research has to be done to these football players and the behaviors that make it so. So it's something to think about. But either way, to answer the question, I don't know. But I can't say it's Baylor. It's Baylor-like, but we're seeing this in a lot of programs across the country. So I believe research needs to be done and conducted to not to say to make sure this doesn't happen again, but to find out and figure out what's going on with these athletes that's making them do decisions that you're not supposed to do in the first place.
All you, Trey.
I don't know, man. We keep having these situations in these football programs, late cases. And if I'm not mistaken, this was actually about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Michigan State suspended 3 players and one of their coaches or someone in their football staff. Um, and we had this, and I believe just within the last day or two, a warrant was sought, I guess, for their arrest. But Matt mentioned, that there seems to be this culture among football programs in particular. We haven't really seen this with basketball or baseball or any other of the major sports, and it's really only been a problem, at least in the media, what's been put in the forefront of our minds in the media is football programs have this problem, and I don't think that it's just football programs. I think in colleges in general that this is an issue, sexual assault. In colleges and just in general it's a problem. But in the college atmosphere, specifically in the college football atmosphere, I think what goes on. Matt mentioned that there's something going. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with CTE or mental issues with some of these players. I think it just has to do with the fact that a lot of these players, especially some of these players who are top players on their team, are put in a situation where they're essentially superstars, but they're not getting paid, and they want to act like they're superstars. And then it also has to do with the fact that a lot of these guys are, what's the word? A lot of these guys are just very immature. They're not making logical, sound decisions. They're letting as Sho Baraka recently said in one of his songs, he was thinking with his penis. That's what they're doing, and it doesn't turn out well when you think like that. You get charged with rape or sexual assault. Now, I think we also have to note that a lot of times in cases, in rape cases, well, not a lot of times, but and there's been cases where women have lied, against a man or another woman or whatever the case may be, and said that this person raped me or this person sexually assaulted me, and so you have this big conversation about consent and no is no and yes is yes, and just because silence is not yes. I think with these with these men have to do, if you want to consider them men, they're not really, clearly they've shown themselves not to be mature enough to be considered men, but with the culture on these campuses has to be enforced. I hate to say enforced, but they need to, these college these athletic directors have to foster a culture among the football programs that is not conducive to sexual assault and rape. And the way to do that is you have to teach these young kids. Because most of them are my age and younger. How to be a man, what it means to be a man, how you treat women. A lot of these guys don't have grew up without fathers, and so they were never taught by another man what it means to be a man and how you should treat women. And they may not necessarily have been taught, where the line is in terms of where the line is in terms of how you can touch a woman, and should I hug this girl, or should I not hug this girl, and that goes into a whole lot of psychological things with women as well. You hug a, as a guy, you might just hug a girl, just saying hi out of saying hi, and they may have some feelings for you, and because you hug them, that means something to them, and so they hold on to that. And as men, or sometimes, if you're thinking, like I was saying, if you're thinking with your penis, if that girl decides that maybe she wants to flirt with you, you take it to the that part. If you're thinking like that, you're gonna take that to its fullest extent. And clearly in these cases in the football programs, they're going further than they're going further than where they should have gone. And clearly, I mean, if these women are not lying, these cases are for real, that consent was not given. So I think this most issues, whether it be issues in terms of a relationship with police officers, and multiple other issues in the world, like education is key. And in this case, I think a fostering of a healthy environment in these football programs means that these athletic directors need to do something about educating these boys, these boys about what about the dangers of that thought process, that they can get what they want as a man because they're stronger. Teach them what it means to be a man, and teach them how to treat women.
So I think, and we don't want to over speculate because the investigation has just started, and as Trey and Matt so eloquently pointed out on both cases, on both fronts, this is the culture now, and something has to be done, or somebody has to do a study on why football players, mostly collegiate football players, get into this situation where it doesn't matter what school it is, whether it's a Michigan State or a Baylor, that we just have this thing where they can't take no for an answer, or they just find themselves caught up so many times. And obviously it's a serious situation. Nobody deserves to be raped. No woman asked to be raped. And it's not about how you dress. It's not about any of that stuff. And just the fact that you can be raped, and like Trey said, I think a lot of it is due to the fact that these are just kids, and they're not used to they're used to high school where they can escape, and there's no true escape in college, because you see these girls in class, you see these girls and boys in class, and you might have some groupies and stuff like that, and that doesn't excuse the action, because obviously if you can't take no for an answer, or you don't understand what consent is, then you shouldn't be putting yourself in a situation where you could be in jail, and you shouldn't be putting yourself in a situation where you could hurt that woman and scar that woman for life, that young lady for life. Because that's what truly, the most devastating effect of rape is that truly the trust is lost, and your drunkenness, your whatever led you to that situation is going to ruin somebody, a girl, for the rest of their life. They may never trust a man again. All because a school didn't take the time, or the high school didn't take the time, or parents didn't take the time. All they saw was talent on a football field, and they didn't really invest in growing the person behind the player. And I think that's generally what happens here. A lot of times, go along with what Trey says, the fact of one part of the athlete wasn't raised. The athlete was trained to be able to have what they want, what he or she wants, and we shouldn't take it for granted that some of these cases, even though this case deals with men, there are women that rape as well, and so we shouldn't just lump rape into this thing as if it does disproportionately happen to women as well. But we got to be equal here and say it also happens to men too. And it is a shame that yet again on a college campus, instead of talking about the good things at Michigan State, we're talking about couple of people on the football team who decided to rape a woman, and it's a shame. And studies should definitely be done. Schools have to do something, man. The NCAA needs to step in. I know this is a problem at all college campuses, whether you're an athlete or not, where you have kids that don't understand what consent is, don't understand what the word no means, and everything else. So you got to invest in teaching these kids that, because ultimately college is where you go to learn and how to be a better person. And if you don't understand what consent is, you can't graduate from college not knowing what consent is. That's how we get sexual predators. Can't happen anymore. It's time for us to take responsibility on training these men, training these women to be able to have good, healthy relationships with the opposite sex. Yeah, so that's my spiel on that. And also, since this is in the news, we won't really talk about it probably until next week. But the gymnastics program is also having a little scandal of its own with a sexual predator. They have asked uh, the 20, let me get these years right, 2012 and 2016 team. They're requesting to interview Gabby Douglas, Simone Biles, Lori Hernandez, Madison Koshin, and who else? Did I miss anybody? They're going there. And Ali Raisman and the Fab Five in 2012. They're petitioning them to come forward because you have this doctor, uh, young guy, who was having free reign to do what he wanted with the girls, and apparently have been doing that for 30 years. And so they're trying to figure out if he did anything to any of those any of our gymnasts in the past 8 years, because he did it for about 20 or so years as a doctor. He took advantage of the women, and he was raping them as well. And it's a shame. We definitely will talk about that next week, just because it's almost midnight, and I try to keep this within the allotted time. Don't want to go over more than 2 hours and some change. So we'll talk about that next week. But I just wanted to spotlight the predator at the gymnastics program with the doctors, to let people know who might not know about that, who might not have seen it on the news or on ESPN, and you see it here. So the another part of this podcast is to inform you guys on what's going on. So we'll move right along to our one. We usually have one yes or no question. So guys, do you think, you don't need to explain it, we can expound on it next week. Do you think the Cavs are doomed without Kevin Love for 6 months? I'm gonna say possibly, but more than likely no, because they really don't need Kevin Love until the playoffs. So my answer is no. Go ahead, Matt. Matt, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
My only thing is simply, I'm gonna say this. About this whole thing is basically like, look, far as far as this whole culture thing is concerned, um, uh, it needs to be I mean, a lot of education needs and everything else. I know that it does take place, but at the same time, it's also you know these the coaches and everything else in this program have to make sure that they on the straight, these kids stay on the straight and narrow, because there are temptations out there that's willing to throw throw them out, to throw them off, basically. So as far as that's concerned, they're gonna have to find ways to, like, literally make sure these kids don't get into trouble. Like I said, Well, it being the football player, half of the football players, research needs to be done. It really needs to be done.
On the issue of Kevin Love, maybe you have the Raptors who just got Ibaka, but I don't think in the regular season, no. Maybe in the playoffs without Kevin Love, yes.
So, Matt, do you think the Cavaliers are doomed without Kevin Love? It's a yes or no question. You know, we only have
No,
no.
no,
Okay.
they'll be fine.
All right. So moving right along to our next to last question. You know, I always gotta bring my boys in here. The 76ers. You know, we're on them and those shenanigans. As it turns out, we were pretty accurate last week when we said Jalil Okafor wasn't playing because of politics. Oh boy, how right we were. But I'm going to expand on that a little bit more in my final hot take. But so the question is, were the 76ers ever, all right, well, you know, I'm going to talk about that too, but I guess we can talk about it here. Were the 76ers ever going to trade Okafor, or do you think that depends on Embiid's health? So you go right ahead, Matt, since you're unmuted.
They're not gonna trade. No, they're not gonna trade Okafor. They're not. No, you'd be at this point you'd be foolish to do it because here you go. Embiid is not healthy this year, and nobody's gonna take Okafor right now. Nobody. And if you take Okafor, it's for what? What are you gonna trade him for? You know, you need in this league two big men down low, but I don't see any team at this point taking them. I just don't because I just don't. The Sixers, first of all, on the terrible predicament that they put themselves in, handling Okafor's injury and handling now Ben Simmons' injury. You know what? Right to trade him is a terrible idea. I don't know if we brought this up on Sunday. I was talking with y'all, and I think it's up to Brett Brown to put the players in the right position. And from what I'm seeing, I mean the Sixers are playing well. Thank you, TJ McConnell. They're playing well, but Jalil got to step his game up. He really has to step his game up. I believe he's a better player than what he is right now. Honestly, I really do.
Well, not to cut you off, I keep bringing this up because I think it needs to be emphasized. They gotta play him too.
Of course, they gotta play him. I mean, to think that, and I'm glad you brought that up. To think that you're gonna trade this man, and he hasn't played a lick in a long time. You're joking. I mean, I don't know what Colangelo is thinking. I don't know what the Sixer brass is thinking, but yeah, we're here. We as a fan base are trying to trust the process, but yet you're ruining the process right now by lying lying to the fans. You're lying to I don't know who else you're lying to, but if you think you'll get something out of Okafor, nobody is buying. So in a sense, we're stuck with him. And while we're stuck with him, which by the way, it's not a bad idea. And yes, you do need to play him too. I don't know who the Sixers. I don't know who the Sixers are fooling. They ain't fooling me. They ain't fooling nobody. Put the man on the floor. And to trade him is the worst thing you can do right now. Honestly, the worst.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Were the Sixers ever going to trade Jalil Okafor? The world may never know. I mean, it was kind of obvious. Like once the whole thing about Joel Embiid came out and tore meniscus. Um, uh, and everything that went down with Colangelo. That it supposedly they were going to trade him on Monday or Tuesday, and that never happened. And I think at that point, I realized that they're not going to trade him. I don't think that they were never going to trade him in the first place. I think it may have had, and I'll leave this for Kylan to talk about because I think it's supposed to be a hot take, but it potentially was because of Joel Embiid's health that they did not trade him. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it was more so they weren't getting the deal that they wanted from the Pelicans or any of the number of teams that they were in trade talks with. I mean, that's where I stand on that. Like, it was maybe a combination of the two of Joel Embiid's injury, but I think it was majority the reason why they didn't end up trading, where they're not going to end up trading him because, I mean, they only have 3 days left to trade him. And I can't see a trade going down in the next 3 days, especially when I believe the trade between the Pelicans was supposed to be Ajinça and the 18th pick, and they wanted to try to snag Drew Holiday. But if they were to get Drew Holiday, they'd have to give up, maybe 2 first rounders, Jalil, and maybe somebody like Robert Covington or something like that. And I don't think the Sixers are willing to give that up. So I never really saw that trade happening. We saw the Nuggets trade Nurkic for Mason Plumlee. So it wasn't like the Nuggets are in need of a big man at this point. The Bulls was, they were supposedly an option because it's Jalil's hometown, but there was never, in my mind, a viable trade between the Bulls. In my opinion, actually, they should have traded before Ibaka actually now has been traded to the Raptors. Before that had happened, I wanted them to trade Jalil to the Raptors or even maybe the Bucks, and try to get either Malcolm Brogdon from the Bucks or try to get Terrence Ross, who has now been traded to the Magic, or Norman Powell from the Raptors. But I think it was a lack of. I mean, it really has to do with the fact that they didn't play Jahlil Okafor. And so his trade value dropped ever since Joel Embiid, kind of took to stardom. And because of that, the Sixers kind of anticipate, they thought, and they thought wrong, that Jahlil Okafor's trade value had not dropped when in reality it clearly has dropped. And nobody really is willing to give up much for him because of that. Even though in the future, and me and Colin kind of disagree on this, whether or not he'll be a superstar. But I mean, right now it's clear that his stock is very low, and teams are not willing to give up much for him. And it would behoove the Sixers that they try and actually get something in return for Jahlil Okafor. I mean, he was the third or fourth pick in the draft. You can't give up. I mean, that's like giving up the third pick in the draft for nothing. You can't do that, regardless of what you think about Jahlil Okafor in his future. The second pick, regardless of what you think about Jahlil Okafor and his ability to play basketball, you just can't give up the second pick in the draft for nothing. And I honestly, in all this mess with Colangelo and how he's lied and just the mess that he's made. It's probably actually the smartest move, and I gotta give Collins props for about not trading Jahlil Okafor. It's probably the smartest move he's actually made in not trading Jahlil right now because clearly there wasn't a viable trade available at this point.
Well, I'm just going to say before I dive into my hot take, because it has something to do with the Colangelos and Jahlil Okafor. The fact that they're not being honest is very troubling for me because even though I never liked Hinkie either because I just didn't think. When I look at the way the Sixers ownership is and how when I heard he was the guy that helped Houston get James Harden, you had to look at how long Houston sucked before they got James Harden and Dwight Howard and all that, Patrick Beverly and all that. I never liked Hinkie either, but at least he was honest and said, like, listen, like Sixers fans, don't think we're gonna do well. I traded all the good players. We're gonna get a couple number one picks. Uh, I'm gonna waste some picks on people who won't play for like 2 years, but just wait and see. And he turned out to be right. Jallo Okafor worked out last year, but this year was kind of a log jam due to Hinkie's doing and the Colangelos not being able to figure out what they're going to do with their three big men. 2/3 of that being injury prone, and then just playing politics with the other one. Jallo, I've said this to Trey before. I'll say this a little bit now. Jallo Okafor is not the player to play politics with. You have to remember this is the same Jallo Okafor who is very, very much more mature than he was last year. We was running around here starting fights after losing games and doing 150 on the Ben Franklin Bridge. Which why you would do 150 on the Ben Franklin Bridge and whatever car he was driving, probably a car that none of us can afford. But whatever car he was driving, doing 150 on the Ben Franklin. And, he's obviously more mature than any of us give him credit for the fact of how he's been handling this and not kicking it in and not trying to TO his way to another team. So I'll give him credit for that. He's definitely come a long way. But the Colangelos, my goodness. Just so we're here, Ben Simmons, I just want y'all to understand. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will probably not play again this year. Ben Simmons is definitely not playing. Joel Embiid will probably not play a game again this year because my one thing with the Colangelos is this. They lied about it. I knew there had to be something wrong with Joel Embiid for them to not play him after they said it was a sprained knee. No sprained knee is that bad that you're going to miss almost 3 weeks of action. So
they said there was that Embiid was taking his day to day, and everybody and their mom knows that's not a day to day injury.
Right, a torn meniscus. Even though Trey will aptly point out it's a partially torn meniscus, but it's still a torn meniscus either way. And with him, with the fact that he had Kevin Durant's plantar fasciitis, and he already injured his MCL and ACL at Kansas and his ankle, you gotta be careful with him. I don't want him to play another game. I know a lot of Sixers fans will say that's blasphemy, but with him, I told Trey earlier, and I told Matt too. We will be lucky between him and Ben Simmons if both of them play at least 6 to 7 years before they retire, because they both are in their 20s but have the knees and the legs of 40-year-olds. So I don't know, and I guess this is a yes or no, but y'all can explain it too. You think Ben Simmons is going to play this year? Go ahead, Matt.
Hell no, I don't. I mean, what's his name? Embiid may play a few more games this year, but this will be the third player to miss a year on the Sixer roster. The third. I hope this draft ends that.
Oh, that's right. Jallo Okafor was the last Sixers pick besides Allen Iverson to play a full season. You're right. Go ahead, Trey.
I didn't have much else to say. But yeah, like I said, I give you props on the whole, whether they should have traded him or not in the first place. And clearly they decided not to trade him, or they made the decision not to trade him because the value was not there.
Well, do you think before I start my hot take, do you think Ben Simmons or Embiid will play again this year?
Probably not. I can't see. just based on you know, Joel Embiid's injury proneness. Clearly, now that we're seeing, I can't see him playing by the end of the year. Even though it's hard to tell whether or not we can trust Colangelo. Ben Simmons, I don't see him. I don't see if Joel Embiid is not able to play, then I don't see why you would want to play Ben Simmons. Like, why not just? I mean, based on how this year has played out, like it would only make sense for them to just not let them play at all for this year. Let them get healthy, and then next year, then you can play them together. The only reason why you would try to play Ben Simmons or Joel this year is if you're like, okay, we're not even gonna think about trading Jalil until until maybe like after next season or maybe even 2 years down the line, and we're thinking about trading Nerlens because we would want to have to pay him that his qualifying offer is only worth like $8 million. And he's probably going to demand more like 13 or 14. So if they're like, okay, we don't want to have to pay him that money, and you're thinking about trading Nerlens now, but I mean, this is only, you only have 3 days to do this. So, I mean, in my opinion, neither of them play. And they're stuck, again with this log jam for next year until, the trade deadline rolls around.
All right. Well, it's time for the hot take, as we always do. So mine, as has been alluded to, I wrote a thing. The 76ers would be stupid to trade Jalil Okafor. I kind of called it earlier this week when everybody was all like, it's going to be he's going to be traded. And why I say it's stupid for them to trade Jalil Okafor isn't even, and this was before I knew that the Colangelos had misled us about Joel Embiid's injury, and that much like Donald Trump, somebody had to leak it in order to get them to tell the truth about Joel Embiid. And much of why they shouldn't trade Jalil Okafor has nothing to do with Embiid. They shouldn't trade Jalil Okafor for the fact of last year when they played him, he averaged 17.5 points and 6.5 rebounds. So he was nearly a 20 and 10 player. Nearly a 20 and 10 player. He averaged 18 points and 7 rebounds per game. And 1.2 blocks. And in the last game, when they let him play, he had 3 blocks, only had 4 points. He came off the bench, should have started, but came off the bench. And you can't play pop. Okay, I'll say it like this, right? The job of an organization, the head coach, the owner, is to put the job of the owner and the GM is to put players like Jalil Okafor, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, to put them and give them the talent around them and the coaching around them to succeed, right? So if you look at Jalil Okafor, right, he was a standout at Duke. He played with Jabari Parker. Jabari Parker was the other half of that dynamic duo, right? Look at Jabari Parker. Now he's very injury prone. He just broke his leg again, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But he's got all the potential in the world too when he's healthy. And they're both very talented players, both from Chicago, right? Both 19 and 7, 19 and 6 people, right? So they both have the talent. And the difference is in Milwaukee, Jabari Parker is outside of Kupo, Jabari Parker is the other star. And they treat Jabari Parker like he's the star. They develop him. I can't say that here with the 76ers. Can Brett Brown develop talent? I haven't seen it in 3 years. Now, we've had this discussion with Trey on Sunday. Trey was telling me that Jalil Okafor he thinks will be a good player but won't be a superstar. I think that if you're that if you came in your rookie year, you outscored the best player in your draft class, which was Karl Anthony Towns. You averaged 4.5 more points than he did in his rookie year. I don't think you lose that. I really don't. I don't think you lose 17.5 and 6.5 rebounds. And I think you could get that up and it could be near 20 and be 8 and 20 and 8, 20 and 9. Because I think he can be a 20 and 10 person. Now, he definitely needs to improve his defense. I'll give everybody that. He can improve his defense. He can block more shots. He can play harder. He can rebound. He needs to bulk up. Like Kevin Durant sort of bulked up. He needs to bulk up. The weight room more. But, like I said, when you don't play him and you play politics with him, you really don't give me much confidence that you can develop players. How can, like, when I talk about the Sixers on this podcast, I talk about it in reference to their potential. They have a big three. They have Jahlil Okafor, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons. And I don't know how it's going to work when you can't even handle 3 players, right? You can't even handle 3 centers. How you going to handle 3 players that need the ball in Joel Embiid, Jahlil Okafor, and Ben Simmons? And whoever you draft, whether that's Malik Monk or somebody else who needs Alonzo Ball, somebody who needs the ball. How you going to handle 4 players if you can't even handle 3 centers and you can't not play politics with that? The 76ers would have been stupid to trade Okafor, not only because he's a talented player and with the right coach, his defense would improve. He's kind of like an Andre Iguodala, where Andre Iguodala, when he was younger, he only did one thing really, and that was play defense. He was a defensive stopper. He could score, but he was a defensive stopper. Then he went to Denver, developed his skill set, went to Golden State, won a championship, being their 6th man, and being their defensive stopper. And it took him a while, but he found a coach, Steve Kerr and Mark Jackson in Denver, and the people and his coach in Denver who believed in him and put him in situations to win. That is the job of a coach, is to develop your players. And I don't know if Brett Brown can do that. Now, next year will be a true test of him, and I guess they'll bring him back. I don't know why everyone is putting faith, so that's why you shouldn't trade Jahlil Okafor. Now on to the Colangelos in this mess, right? The Colangelos, really the only thing the Colangelos are known for, other than bringing back USA basketball, is running the Phoenix Suns into the ground. Now let's look at the Colangelos, right? Now they had Steve Nash, Amar'e Stoudemire, and Shawn Marion. What did they do with it, right? Now when you look at how they want to build a team, and basically what's happening is everyone is reverting back and they're running a Phoenix Suns style offense where it's fast, play defense, play fast, get your 3-point shots on, get the ball, score quickly. So that's what they're doing, right? And when you look at the Colangelos, when they ran the team, and most of that, the brains behind the Phoenix Suns was Steve Kerr as their GM, right? So they would play fast, and they had the same thing. An injury. Stop me if this matches the Sixers. An injury-prone center who has great offensive skills, great defensive skills, but gets injured too much, and will probably never really have a long career because of that. Then you have the power forward / center who's a real talent, needs the ball, but they play politics with him, and he never really truly matches his potential, Shawn Marion. And then you have the point guard / prolific passer who can do it all, but really wasn't the same without his running buddy. Ben Simmons, right? Sounds a lot like Ben Simmons, right? I just described the three basketball players that the Sixers have right now. The Shawn Marion being Jahlil Okafor. The Amar'e Stoudemire, which I hope less injury prone, but is proven to be just as injury prone, Ben Simmons. I mean, not Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. And Ben Simmons being a prolific passer who may not be the same if you don't have players around him. So the Sixers and the Colangelos need to understand that you are in Philly. You can pull off that shady lying stuff in Phoenix where they care more about the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Phoenix Coyotes than they do about the basketball team. But here in Philadelphia, this is football in a basketball town. When the Eagles are not playing, it's all about the 76ers. You need to respect the legacy of the 76ers, the Julius Irvings, the Allen Iversons. You need to be upfront with us. We appreciate honesty, because if you're not upfront with us, we will call for your head. Just like we called for Chip Kelly's head after 2 years. Just like you still have people currently calling for Brett Brown's head. How long do you think, if you keep lying with us and lying to us, before people will come and call for your head? This is Philadelphia. We don't do that. We don't have no patience. We've waited for 4 years for the 76ers. We've seen stupid trade things, stupid everything. Don't try and pull the wool over our eyes, sitting Jallo Okafor just to try and trade him, to drum up trade value. No. The Colangelos are ruining the 76ers, and they need to get it together. And trading Jallo Okafor, trying to trade Jallo Okafor, was the first and last straw. Get it together. Keep Jallo Okafor. If Brett Brown can't develop him, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, fire him and get somebody else. Do your job. Do what the NBA brought you here to do, which is to turn the 76ers back into a competitive team in the Atlantic Division, and eventually win a champion, and eventually compete for a title. Do it. That was my hot take. Next week, we'll definitely have Trey come. I'm gonna ask him to do it once again, to come and deliver his eloquence to a hot take. But thank you guys for listening. Enjoy your holiday weekend. Don't party too hard. On the East Coast, in the Philadelphia, Delaware, New York area, 65 and 66 the next 2 days, guys. Go ahead and enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Deuces.